Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty is Charged podcast. Apologies to our live audience. We take a week off a little bit and some technical difficulties happen. So here we are today talking about the Chargers improvements from this offseason. We wanted to kind of put some positivity out there. A lot of people said we were a little negative on the Bradley Bozeman conversation. So it's about balance. And here we are with a more positive show. And joining me to that is my guy, Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How you doing tonight?
Oh, boo-hoo. More positivity. Bitter and old now. I'm turning 30 this year. It's started.
Yeah, I last night I almost called the local PD to file a noise complaint. And I felt so old that just like out of sheer like I can't be this guy. I didn't file it, but it was like 11 o'clock and somebody was like having a rager, and I'm like, I want to go to bed. And you're making me not be able to go to bed. But I dealt with it like an adult, and then I went to bed. So there we go.
Okay, well, that's good. At least you're not grandfather Philip Rivers' age at this
No
point.
kidding.
Dude.
No kidding.
He's like, my oldest is 23 or whatever it was, and I have a 6-month-old grandchild. It's like Philip Rivers is a grandpa. Help.
Yeah, no, that's so bad. When I saw the video, I was like, oh, that's cool. John Gruden was with Phil Rivers, and then I listened to it and I was like, wait, he's a grandfather? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Which, he had his oldest girl when he was in college. So I guess it would make sense that his daughter would also have a child in college. But then he's like, yeah, this is my 18-month-old son. And then my grandson is 6 months old or whatever it was. I was like, that's insane.
Yeah. And Gunnar Rivers is an absolute unit, man. He walked out. I didn't realize how big this kid was. Yeah. Holy cow, man. Those jeans are no joke.
No joke at all. And he's got the same old release. So he's going to be probably on college radars, I think, this upcoming season a little bit more heavily. So it's just fun talking about Phil Rivers, man. We obviously grew up with Phil Rivers as our quarterback, and it's good to see him back and thriving as a high school coach.
Yeah.
I know everybody keeps wanting him to come back to the Chargers, but his high school team is crushing it. And obviously he gets to coach his kids and Sue will coach his grandkids. So he's having a great time down in Alabama, and you love to see it.
Yeah, would love to. If he wanted to come back, I'd rather give him the number 13 than another quarterback.
Yeah, I don't feel great about that one. Does
it matter? Not really, but I just felt icky.
He's not going to play a regular season game, so it's like, but
yeah.
Do we have to give him 13? Like, of all the numbers, like you couldn't make him have.
Give him 21, like I've been saying.
And like, if they had given like Trey Harris 13, I'd be like, okay, like that's kind of cool, like the next up and coming guy.
Right.
The 4th string UDFA quarterback. I don't know about that one, guys. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Oh, well, we will not be bringing up that as one of the improvements of the offseason.
No, sadly not. But yeah, so we're going to dive into our improvements. Before we do that, we're going to give a quick shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks, the best and easiest way to consume daily fantasy sports. Obviously, you guys who have been listening to the show for quite some time know about our partnership with Prize Picks, and the basketball and hockey playoffs are in full swing. So today's Monday, tomorrow's Tuesday, which means that you are able to get in on a you're able to turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in round, every round lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the takes to tickets sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. So it's a great opportunity. Excuse me. I'm going to clear my throat a little bit here tonight. And then obviously there's Flex Friday as well. So Prize Picks truly is the best and most collaborative daily fantasy platform out there. We love using it. And we definitely encourage you guys to go check it out as well. So you can do that today by downloading. Make sure you download the app. And then once you get in on the app, make sure you are using the code GUILTY to get $50 instantly after your first play of your first $5 lineup. Again, that is code GUILTY to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Tyler, let's get into these improvements for our audio, for our visual audience. Obviously, we have a slideshow, which we like to do on here. I'm a visual learner, so
Yeah.
We have to go through the audience here.
Yeah. And shout out anyone who took the Cavs less yesterday in the first half.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Apparently the Chargers just signed a linebacker. Is that true?
I know they signed a receiver and they
Yep.
cut Williams.
Linebacker Kanai Mauga.
Sick. I hope
According
he's
to Chris Rim. Don't know who that is.
Yeah. Oh, look, one of the Rivers kids is here. Here's Rondell Rivers, his first live stream. I'm kidding. I have no idea. But it would be funny.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Okay, so I have no thoughts there. I don't know who that person is. We'll get into that, I'm sure.
You don't have any thoughts? We need to be more optimistic.
I think he might have been like somebody who was trying out, I want to say.
Hey, awesome.
Yeah.
Good for him, man.
So where the Chargers have improved the most this offseason, I think running back is a natural place to start this conversation, and not that we are taking a slight on previous players by any means. But you look back at the 2024 group led by J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, who they obviously did not get a ton of production out of, Hassan Haskins, Kamani Vidal, and then obviously practice squad Jarrett Patterson. This year, the Chargers will be bringing in Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, who I think just better fit the way that they want to run the football. And then obviously Hassan Haskins and Kamani Vidal are back. But Jim Harbaugh apparently loves Raheem Sanders. He is a big fan of his, to the point where they took all of the undrafted free agents and the tryout players, and they made them keep practicing. And then the draft picks and Sanders got to come off the field for rookie minicamp. So I didn't love Raheem Sanders, but the coaching staff apparently really, really liked his tape. And he's really the only free agent or undrafted free agent who they've talked pretty glowingly about. So I thought that was notable. They obviously feel great about him. Jarrett Patterson is back as well. But I think overall, like, there's this public perception of how the Chargers want to play football and how they played football last year that doesn't really like back up with how their efficiency stats ranked in terms of, their rushing attack. So, J.K. Dobbins and his explosive playability really, buoyed their rush EPA. They ended up in 18th in rushing EPA per play in the league. But on a success rate standpoint, they were 27th in the league. So they were not consistently hitting the runs that were projected for the Chargers last year. And, some of this is obviously the Mekhi Becton aspect of things. But there was just a real problem with the way that the Chargers running backs were not able to hit those singles and not able to hit those doubles. And even though I don't love Najee Harris, I'm pretty confident that he is going to be able to consistently hit that. And so is Omarion Hampton. And then Hampton also has the home run playability. So I think the two of them together, maybe J.K. Dobbins is probably better than Najee Harris overall, but they didn't really have much from the RB2 standpoint. And now they have Omarion Hampton in that role. Maybe Najee Harris kind of becomes that RB2 later on. And then if they like Sanders as much as they are publicly saying, then I think the depth is in a better situation too. So, Kamani Vidal and Raheem Sanders in a competition for that final spot, I think is a better situation than what they had last year. So overall, I think this room is just more complete. I think it complements the way they want to play better. Obviously the injuries from last season really hampered them. And so Najee, who's never missed a game, knock on wood that continues. And then Omarion Hampton, same kind of thing. So just from a consistency standpoint, I think they have done a really nice job improving this particular room.
Yeah, no doubt. I think this is at least in terms of the starters, an improvement, but I'm glad you also broke down the reserves as well. Sanders, I didn't love him. Like, wow, take him in the second round. But I didn't dislike him so much that he should be a UDFA. I thought about where he was projected.
Draftable grade for sure.
Yeah, as a on the consensus board, I forget where he ended up, but it felt like a pretty simple 5th round selection, let's say. So I understand why they felt so glowingly about him. I still don't know why he dropped out. I guess I can do more digging to figure out why he ended up a UDFA. Yes, we did see some falls with some players, but some of that was just expected, or there was just lots of running backs. But out of the draft altogether was definitely a surprise. So I thankfully had watched him, so I know good things about him, of course. And Alex very much so likes him. I don't like him as much as Alex, but that's fine.
I don't think anybody likes him as much as Alex does.
No, definitely not. When it comes to, I think you can easily pair up, like Gus Edwards is now Najee Harris, and J.K. Dobbins is now a Marianne Hampton, even though they're not perfectly the same. I think you can maybe look at it that way. When it comes to the success rate of the Steelers last year, they were, I think, identical to the Chargers in terms of rushing success rate. Do you think Najee Harris? I guess I'd have to know more about the Steelers.
So they were literally identical.
Yeah, I'd have to know more about the Steelers, and of course, that doesn't like parse out Fields as a runner, Wilson as a runner, or Warren, obviously. But like, how are you feeling that? Do you think Najee Harris can contribute to a positive success rate and an improvement for the Chargers there, or do you think, I don't know, is he going to be better than Gus Edwards, and that's why they see the improvement in the success rate? Or I don't know. I was surprised that the Steelers were so low in that regard.
Sure. I think if you're comparing the two, the Steelers, I don't think they have somebody like Will Dissly, and all due respect to, Darnell Washington, he might become that guy, but I don't think they have somebody like Will Dissly from a tight end standpoint, and Tucker Fisk really kind of elevated that aspect as well. So that's an advantage for the Chargers. The tackles for the Chargers, obviously, I would say a pretty significant advantage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers, who are trying to run a ton of outside zone with Arthur Smith, I just don't think they had the tackles to do it. And they drafted Troy Fautanu, and he didn't play last year, so maybe that changes there. So I just don't think the Steelers really had the personnel to run what they wanted to run. And I think Najee is a part of that. Like, I think Najee can run outside zone, but I think his better stuff, to me, from what I watched, is where, you're getting him on the inside in the A gaps, the B gaps. You're having a counter concept with the puller power, things like that. If you're framing this as Najee is your Gus Edwards, upgrade, I think that makes sense, even though I think he probably starts the season as like the RB1. And then Hampton is your J.K. Dobbins replacement. I think you can kind of swing it a little bit more that way. But overall, I think the Chargers personnel is better than what the Steelers have. And I think the scheme fit is much more accurate to what Najee Harris can actually do as a player on a down-to-down basis, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I would agree there.
So yeah, I think this is a much better room here, and just overall, I think the depth is better. I think they have a duo that makes sense. Like, I think injuries are obviously a huge part of what happened with Gus Edwards, but you have to have two backs in this kind of system, and it's just a system where you're going to have that depth. So I'm excited to see what this room looks like. And Omari Hampton, who we really liked, I think can really elevate this room to a different level than what we've seen in the past few years.
Yeah, and overall as a pass catching group, it's better. So this is a much better room in several regards there.
Trent apparently thought your question was silly. I don't think that's silly at all. I think that provides a lot of context to why we could feel like this is an upgrade, because if you look at like counting stats, Najee was better than JK, or excuse me, JK was better. Yeah, Najee was better than JK, but efficiency stats had JK better. Mm-hmm. But I think if the context of Najee Harris, what he was dealing with in Pittsburgh, the system not really being a fit, I think there's a little bit more of a rosier outcome here. But I wouldn't be surprised if we get to like week 8 and this does become Hampton's show, and he's just their 3-down workhorse back, and Najee's kind of the goal line situation like Gus was. So both these guys will have a role. Both of them will play. And I think, you look at the videos the Chargers are posting on social media today, their running back room is huge, man. These two, Raheem Sanders, Hassan Haskins, those are large individuals. And Kamani's not tall, but he is built and he is thick. So this is a room that I think more properly fits what Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman have historically wanted at the running back position.
Most definitely. TD points out, as well, no real play action threat to keep the defenses honest. Oops, sorry.
Sure.
That's a really, really good segue, TD, there. I appreciate
that.
Because if I can, there we go. This team improved, I think, tremendously in terms of pass game verticality, because DJHR, like, yeah, all right. Some Chargers fans were like, he's going for 1,000 yards. Imagine him. And then he had 34. And I don't even know if that's like the actual number, but none of you really know what that number is, because it's definitely under the 80. He had the one touchdown against the Raiders that Herbert threw him open. That was sick. But otherwise, there was basically nothing there. McConkey last year, according to...
You gave it more credit.
Oh, did I double his number or something?
31.
31 receiving yards for DJ Chark. Yeah, that didn't work. I thought it was going to work based on everything we saw in training camp. Then there was the injury and just nothing materialized. Ladd McConkey, for as amazing as he is, and if you look at reception perception, he was great last year. Lots of green. Surprised on the red in the slant area. I never would have guessed slants were that much of an issue for him, but whatever. He was amazing. But in terms of 9 routes, he only ran a pure vertical go ball kind of route 6.1% of the time, which was marked as red, which basically means significantly lower than the league average. And that was not like really going to be his thing anyway, but they asked him to do everything, and that really wasn't one of them. Now, if you talk about deep overs, corners, posts, like, yeah, that was also there, but just pure throw it as far as you can, run a 9 route down the field. That was not McConkey. Herbert last year on attempts of 20 or more, 20 yards or more, 9 of 21 outside left, 5 of 15 over the middle, 19 out of 39 on the outside right, which makes sense as a right-handed quarterback, but they could have been better. They could have done more. And of course, they wanted to do more. And unfortunately, Quentin Johnson, as we discussed, I don't have to tell any Chargers fan this, the success rate on the outside was not great. I don't know what it is, but I know it wasn't great. Whatever that number is, it's in the red for sure. And they had a really difficult time throwing the ball down the field, along the boundary, over the middle, you name it. So in walks Mike Williams, who at minimum is going to be that for you, and maybe maximum as well. But like that's his thing. Trey Harris doesn't necessarily have to just be that guy, but he adds a tremendous value in that regard. Like maybe that's all he does his rookie year. He's a sacrificial X. He's a downfield guy. Maybe that's it his rookie year. Maybe that's their vision for him. But that's there. They mentioned, I think Joe Ortiz mentioned, or Jim Harbaugh mentioned, when they took Oronde Gadsden, like there's a vertical element that they love with him. So he's added here as well. Keandre Lambert-Smith, not like my favorite receiver in the draft, but given the 4.3 speed, can absolutely add things vertically as well. So they've gone from a team that either lost their guy, didn't have the right guy, Quentin Johnson's thing, McConkey doing something else. Basically, like they didn't have that part of their identity that they really wanted. And so Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, these guys made it a point to go, we are going to throw it down the field, and we need to find guys that can get open down the field specifically on those 9 routes. So Mike Williams, Harris, Gadsden, Lambert-Smith, it opens up so much more for them, which is great because we've discussed like Gus Edwards, Najee Harris, 2 of the most stacked box facing guys in the league, and having guys who can take that pressure and just push guys back a little bit is great.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you included Gadsden in this conversation. You know, we'll get to him on a second. But last season, Simi Fehoko, Joshua Palmer, and DJ Chark all had an average depth of target over 15 yards per target. And the 3 of them combined for 721 yards. Like the bulk of that obviously is Palmer, who had 564 yards. So the Chargers, they got basically 0 production out of their multiple X receivers, whether that's Chark or Simi Fehoko, the guys who function in it. You know, Quentin would from time to time, but I like how they threw multiple bodies at that problem. You know, you mentioned Gadsden, which I think is a perfect fit. Like that's a great opportunity for them to identify a versatile chess piece who, you know, I didn't love his blocking tape, but as a chess piece, that works. You can flex him out there with 3 tight end sets, and he can be an X in that situation. You know, obviously you have Mike Williams, Trey Harris, you mentioned. And so they have 3 guys now who can play X as opposed to basically 0 from last season. So that, whether you wanted to deem it as like a pass game verticality or just specifically the X role, you know, having more options here, it just is going to make sense. And, you know, people pointing out, you know, play action in the chat here. The Chargers ran play action at the 2nd highest percentage in the league last year because they had to, but because that's how they want to play the game. And now they have multiple guys who can provide that verticality and give Ladd McConkey the space underneath. So I know that there are Chargers fans who don't love the way that they've gone about receiver specifically, but I think the philosophy here of targeting the vertical game is a great improvement for them to go out and execute the way that they did.
Yeah, would have loved, you know, a home run expensive signing, sure. Although, you know, there's debates on why that's bad, but I like you said, the philosophy is there. I understand what they're doing here and how they're addressing the identity of their team and their offense, and specifically Greg Roman. Not with just like with one guy. we walked into the draft and it was like, okay, Mike Williams, but that's not 17 games in there. Like that's not going to happen. But so they just go, I mean, Harris, Gazet, Lambert, Smith, with pretty significant investments with all three of those guys too. So they are very much so committed to this, and that makes me very happy.
Yeah. The opinions on what Mike Williams is going to give this team are kind of all over the place. Now that we've had some time to like reset here and the draft and everything like that, where are you at with like really what do you expect Mike Williams' role to be with this room?
That's a great question. I wish I saw any bit of DJ Chark last year to give you some sort of like comparable answer there. I don't believe with Baltimore they had anybody like Mike Williams. When Greg Roman was there, they not that kind of vertical guy, not that kind of bigger jump ball sort of guy. So I really couldn't tell you based on any precedent, but I just think he's going to be the guy that trots out there in normal, regular situations and has to win you the jump ball. It's mostly it. But I really think he's just the stopgap guy that they added to draft proof themselves and eventually will give way to someone like a Trey Harris by mid-season. Like I could see Harris taking that from Williams earlier than Hampton takes it from Harris.
Yeah, that's fair. They had Michael Crabtree for a year. That's pretty much about it.
Okay. I was thinking like that's not that Greg Roman years though.
Wasn't it? That was 2018.
Michael Crabtree was a Raven in 2018.
Yeah. He had 98 targets, 54 receptions, and 607 yards in 2018.
When was Roman the OC? 19?
I guess he would have been the tight ends coach at that time.
I don't know.
Yeah. He was the tight ends coach that year. Okay.
Yeah.
Run game coordinator. Okay.
There you go.
Same kind of offense. But yeah, I think it's a role that they want to use because Herbert's really good at it and Herbert trusts Mike Williams. So there are some fans out there who think it's just going to be Mike Williams back to his usual self, and I don't think that's fair. No. And there are other fans who think that Trey Harris is going to walk right in and take the wide receiver 2 spot right away. And I think Mike Williams is going to have a role on this team. Like I do really believe that he is going to, start the season with a significant role. And I think maybe he's not the every down wide receiver 2. Maybe that's a combination of him, Quentin, and Trey Harris, and obviously Ladd is your wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. But I think Mike Williams can definitely give this team, 500 yards and 5-6 touchdowns. Like I think that's very reasonable. And if he is healthy and great, and he's able to get back to 80% of himself, maybe that becomes 750 yards, maybe 800 yards. But I think Mike Williams is going to have a role on this team as long as he stays healthy, and I think he can be an effective red zone piece at minimum and give you a couple jump balls a game. And I think that's enough for 450, 500, and 600 yards.
Yeah, I really don't know. That's the money question. That's probably the most difficult one. How many receiving yards does Mike Williams have this year? I accept 100 as an answer. I accept 800 as an answer. I accept 500 as an answer. I really couldn't tell you. Obviously, we'll figure out more as things go. But yeah, I don't know what their plan is going to be for him and how much he plays.
Yeah. Dennis Young pointing out they are paying Mike starter money, so he is going to play.
Mm-hmm.
And that, this wide receiver room is not necessarily cheap because you have a first round pick, 2 second-round picks. But Mike Williams is going to play, and I think that's where this room is at right now.
Yes, TD, somewhere between 0 and 2,000 yards. Not incorrect.
Although 2,000 yards would be insane.
That'd be it. If Mike Williams has 2,000 yards with Greg Roman, first of all, what happened to the rest of the receiving core?
Yeah. It would be really funny if the best Mike Williams season we ever had is with Greg Roman.
Yeah. What's his...
his 2021 season was really good.
Yeah, it's possible. I think it is possible, but I would not put money on it. That's for sure.
What was his 2021 season ending up at?
1,200.
Yeah, 2021 he had 1,146 yards, 9 touchdowns.
Yeah,
that was his best season.
Yeah,
it's fun. All right. Before we continue, well, our visual audience is going to continue here, but our audio audience, we are going to take a quick break and we'll be back shortly. All right. Let's get to the tight end room. I think this is a room that I think has made some significant improvements. And I think part of this is like revisionist history because of how it went with Hayden Hurst and Stone Smart. But we didn't feel like amazingly about this room heading into the season. It was just kind of like, let's wait and see. Will Dissly, obviously, we felt really good about him, and he exceeded expectations for sure. But they got 8 receptions and 2 starts out of Hayden Hurst. Stone Smart in 4 starts had a much better output than anything they got from Hayden Hurst, which is just kind of funny looking back. But still, 24 receptions between your 2 main move tight ends is not exactly, lighting the world on fire here. So you had Scott Matlock in this room, Tucker Fisk, I mentioned, and then Eric Tomlinson kind of floated back and forth between the practice squad and the active roster. And so you pivot to this 2025 season. You have Will Dissly back, obviously. Tyler Conklin replaces Hayden Hurst. And I think you had to kind of squint a little bit to really find like good Hayden Hurst arguments last year, where Tyler Conklin just had 500 yards with the ghost of Aaron Rodgers. He had 600 yards with Zach Wilson throwing him the football. So he's obviously much closer to his athletic prime than Hayden Hurst was. And I think his best seasons were better than anything Hayden Hurst has done. So Tyler Conklin, an objective upgrade there. Doesn't have the same kind of injury history. Again, knock on wood there. But then you mentioned Aranda Gadsden already. He's a death piece here in this room. Scott Matlock is back. Tucker Fisk is back. And Steve-O Klotz is the second undrafted free agent who Jim Harbaugh mentioned as like a potential special teams stalwart. He can play fullback, tight end. I have not watched him yet. I don't know if I'm going to, but there's at least legitimate competition for Scott Matlock's role. Whereas this time last year it was like Ben Mason, like we don't really know. Like I didn't even put him on here. They did the whole Jordan McFadden thing, and then they pivoted to Scott Matlock pretty quickly, and he had to learn fullback with like 2 weeks left in the preseason. So I think this room has come a really long way since like 2022. But even just from last year, I think it just makes a lot more sense of the roster construction here. And you don't have to squint to see it. Like obviously Aranda Gadsden is a 5th round pick, but this is a guy who led the ACC in receiving as a freshman. And I like Stone Smart, but you kind of had to squint to see those moments, and it was really kind of a work in progress. So you look at Gadsden and his vertical threat potential. You look at Tyler Conklin and his receiving potential. Will Dissly's one of the best blocking tight ends in the league, and he just had 600 yards receiving last year in a role that didn't really suit his skill set. And then you have Matlock, Fisk, maybe Klotz can kind of figure it out. So I think this tight end and fullback room is it's in a lot better of a situation right now. And it just makes more sense of how the pieces can complement each other in 2025.
I mean, even at the beginning of last year, they didn't have, Tucker Fisk contributing. It was Tomlinson, and they were trying to make that work. And they kind of figured out working Fisk into it, and things became a lot better. So even just like last year, they didn't have Fisk the entirety of it. Now they have him back. I still think he makes it. I think, not that everyone's going to love it, but I think it is a 4 tight end, 1 fullback kind of show here. I'm not really of the mindset that Matlock is in any danger of losing his job to Klotz, unless they prefer 2 different types of fullback moving guys, which again, I don't buy that. Yeah, which would be whatever. Like if you're going to lean into the bit, fine. That'd be fun. So the Calvin saying like that Klotz pushes Matlock out. I just don't see it. I mean, they so committed to Matlock, and he did improve. Listen, week 1 last year, I was going, why are we blocking Max Crosby with this guy who was a defensive tackle 4 days ago? And it was terrible. I didn't like that at all. But by the end of the season, you got to admit, like things were looking pretty good. He had the sickest miss of the missed tackle forced that I definitely did not expect. Like there's some things there. I guess if Klotz is more of if he's an actual receiver, no offense, Matlock, but if he's like an actual receiving option, that Matlock isn't okay. But I don't see after the time they've committed to Matlock and how he improved anything changing. But Conklin is clearly the upgrade here. Like you said, with Hurst, everyone's like, oh, well, now with Herbert, again, like we do this every year. Now with this guy, new team, it's going to be great. But Hurst did have 163, 180 yards with the Panthers that previous year. Whereas Conklin, like you said, it's just the floor is there. You know, people could throw out these lofty expectations for Hurst. They might do that for Conklin too. But like to me, I know Conklin's going to have 400 yards, and he could probably have more than that. I think he will have more than that, but I know he'll have 400 yards here this year as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, the health thing is real, and I think Hurst, if he had stayed healthy, he would have had a obviously a much better season, and health
94 yards,
94 yards. But like you mentioned, like it was you had to really kind of imagine it a little bit more, and it was more just like he's the only pass catcher in that room. That's why we felt like he could get to 400 500 yards at that time. But Conklin is just more established. Like he does have an ability to get to that Hayden Hurst just doesn't here. I don't want to be mean to this person, but Charlie asked, can Gadsden be our Brock Bowers? Brock Bowers just had like the greatest rookie receiving his season in like NFL history, like not just as a tight end. So no, I'm trying to be really nice to you and to the player here. But if Gadsden can be like a legitimate tight end one as a pass catcher, I think that's a great outcome for him. And that could be like 600 yards, going forward. Brock Bowers is arguably the best tight end in the league right now. So I just lower expectations. I'm trying to be nice, but lower expectations.
Yeah, even Alex would call you crazy. I think Gadsden's mom would call you crazy too. Can he be our Brock Bowers? No, I don't think we're going to see as much as fans really want to out of Gadsden until at least next year. He is drafted to be more so the Stone Smart replacement for now. Although he can do what Stone Smart did last year in year one, it's not going to take him several years converting positions. So he'll be ready to go. But like with Gadsden, if he gets 200 yards this year, I think that's a great, fine first year. And things will build next year. But Conklin is firmly in front of him. Will Dissly, if you love Trey Harris like I did, well, you got to throw him the ball too. So Gadsden is not going to have a great rookie season. I think he'll have a good one for where he was drafted.
Yeah, this is a 5th round pick, and Brock Bowers was the 13th pick. And if Brock Bowers were in this draft class, he's like 2nd overall in this draft. Like all due respect to Travis Hunter and those guys, but he only fell as far as he did because last year was stacked at receiver, tackle, quarterback. So it just is, it's just not feasible. So there's only one football, and you have a receiver room that's much improved. You have a tight end room that's much improved. I think Gadsden can be a very useful, situational football player. I think he can give them a lot of versatility in that regard. If Tyler Conklin gets injured, I think they can, maybe squeeze some more value there out of Gadsden. But Gadsden is going to be, maybe get a couple targets a game kind of player. So like, I like his fit in this room. I'm excited about this particular situation where they can use him as a big slot, flex him out wide, etc. But he's not going to play a lot. He's like maybe 10 snaps a game to start out. Maybe he might be a healthy scratch to start the season, as Stone Smart was. So patience with Oronde Gadsden is the message today. But I like the player a lot. I like his fit a lot, and it should be fun to monitor his progress throughout the year.
Yeah, Smart had in a very condensed number of games, but 208 receiving yards last year. That seems like a nice target for Gadsden in year one.
For sure. All right, let's get to your next one here.
Alrighty then. My next one, red zone options. I'll keep it short. Steven and I hated watching the red zone offense last year. If you heard us talk about this at any particular point, it was plan A was let's throw every fullback or tight end that can't catch on 4 verts, or we'll just run it repeatedly and it never works unless it's J.K. Dobbins. And that was basically it. I do not know what their red zone identity was last year outside of those 2 things. And I kind of say it as a joke, but that's actually kind of what they did.
They had like no idea what to do. It was like 4 verts, Scott Malak red zone targets. I was like,
spoiler, didn't work. They were 18th in red zone touchdown percentage last year, which I feel like was worse to start the season and then improved later on. Regardless, they have a lot more options this time around. Not just options, but leading to the identity. We just discussed the running back room. You bring in Mekhi Becton. I don't recall how often like Trey Pipkins was the issue in the red zone, but it helps us have someone like Mekhi Becton on, 4th and 1 at the goal line or whatever. You have Mike Williams. I mean, last year, Ladd McConkey did some great stuff in the red zone, don't get me wrong, but they didn't really have like that guy, that big, tall guy who can just go beat the corner. Like, hey, throw a fade. Why not? Mike Williams is there for you for that. The running backs we discussed and Tyler Conklin. Like, if you're sending someone into the end zone, a tight end who can actually catch and be I'm sorry, Will Dissly. I don't mean that. I love you. Like, I don't mean that. Please don't listen to me. But Tyler Conklin as a true receiving tight end can actually threaten this. Like I forget what the lineup we talked about before was, but instead of, Matlock and Fisk and Tomlinson and like Quentin Johnston or Simi Fehoko, God love him, it's Mike Williams, it's Trey Harris, it's Tyler Conklin. Like that is a much more dynamic group in the red zone. So you can run it a lot better. You're going to be blocking a lot better. You have actual targets to throw to this time. So I think in the red zone, it's going to improve quite a bit. Although I was bummed to look at Greg Roman's time with the Ravens. His first year there, they were 4th in red zone touchdown percentage. And then it was middle of the pack. And then I think it was 30th his final year there. So I'm hoping there's some improvement with the Chargers this time around.
Yeah, I think that was one of the bigger complaints from Ravens fans, was just like the lack of creativity in the red zone. And I think we've
that's
seen
crazy
that
with Lamar Jackson, by the way. That is unacceptable.
Yeah. No, it's insane. So I think if you're going to have like this condensed, red zone package, like let's just give you more weapons and at least be able to run the plays that you want to run. So I think that makes sense. I think middle of the pack, 18th is right below that. So I don't know how much I would expect them to be improved there, but Uber points out that Lamar also did get hurt that year. That's fair. That is fair.
Yeah.
But I think they have more opportunities this year. Like it just felt like they knew that Ladd would command so much attention down there, and he did. Like I watched some of the clips that like Ben Solak pointed out on Twitter the other day when he was starting Ladd's rookie season, and he tweeted out several clips from the first Chiefs game.
Mm-hmm.
And even in that game, he was getting double teamed in the red zone. And so it was almost just like, well, white flag. Like if we can't run it in, like, let's just, I don't know, let's do some 4 verts crap. Like I hope that this year there's more of a plan to get these playmakers the football. But if there's not, at least the playmakers are better than last year.
Yes. Like fade to Mike Williams is cooler than fade to, I don't know, whoever, Jalen Reagor.
Yeah. Jalen Reagor.
Which I don't think they ever did, but I like the improvements there.
Yeah. They run a lot of crossers in the red zone, a lot of deep overs in the red zone. So, you get those routes to Trey Harris, you give them to Quentin. Quentin can do them, obviously. It's just a much better spot for them overall. But if you had asked me, I would not have guessed that they were as high as 18th. It felt like they were more like 25th.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
So,
I wonder if it was something later, or just that final game against the Raiders, or something that boosted them up.
Yeah, the last few games they went on quite a roll against the bad teams, which probably inflates this number quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
All right, for our audio audience, we are going to take one more quick break here, and then our video audience, we're going to continue right along here. All right, so the last one I want to bring up is the secondary depth, specifically the depth pieces, because I think you can make an argument either way that last year's starting group might be a little bit better than this year's. A lot of the pieces are the same. Mm-hmm. Really just kind of depends how you feel about Christian Fulton versus Dante Jackson. But I think when you get outside of the starting potential here, that's really what I want to focus on for this particular message, just because like looking at the depth chart, I really like the way that this room has kind of come together. So last year, obviously, you have Fulton, Cam Hart, Tari Basil as your main 3 corners. You have Derwin Alohi and Elijah Molden as your 3 safeties. But the depth really was tested, and a lot of this is due to injury. Like Tony Jefferson was healthy, but obviously coming off of retirement. Marcus May off the street, IR. Eddie Jackson off the street. Asante Samuel Jr. just came out that he had neck surgery recently. So that's, dealing with his stinger issue is obviously a big deal for him. Hopefully he can stay healthy and land in a good spot wherever he ends up. Jasir Taylor, he was injured for quite a while. Dean Leonard also injured for quite a while. He was on IR at some point as well. They played DiCaprio Boodle at some point. Eli Apple. Like the depth they overperformed. Credit to them, right? Especially like getting snaps, getting valuable snaps from Marcus May and Eli Apple, like is crazy to me. So you pivot into this season. Again, you're swapping Dante Jackson in for Christian Fulton. The other 5 are still the same. Maybe Molden and Alohi Gilman kind of switching spots. But the depth here, you still have Tony Jefferson, but you draft RJ Mickens. Dean Leonard is back. You add Benjamin St. Juste. You bring back Jasir Taylor. You draft Triquez Bridges. And there are some other undrafted free agents that some people like as well. And so you have your starting 6 here. Last year, we kind of knew who the 10 names were going to be. This year, you look at these depth pieces, and like there's a lot of guys here that could reasonably make this roster and take the last 4 spots. So you have 6, 7 guys, fighting for 4 spots. And I just like the way that room can potentially come together here. I liked what I saw from RJ Mickens. He was a guy who I graded pretty highly. We've been fans of Dean Leonard. I'm not like a huge Benjamin St. Juste film watcher, but it doesn't look like it's been great. But like stylistically, size profile fits. He does have the system, familiarity as well with this team. You have Triquez Bridges, who also has size. He can play in the slot, he can play safety. So I think they just have more options now that I would trust to potentially play in a game. Whereas last year was just kind of like, let's pluck a veteran off the street and see what happens. So with this group, I just think they've given themselves more flexibility. I think they've given themselves more competition, more youth, more speed, more size. And I just like the way this room has come together. And I think it's kind of become an underrated storyline for Chargers fans to look at this room and see where they have, taken this without having like premium resources to spend and use in this room. I think they've done a really good job putting it together.
Yeah, and if you look at the last year's depth too, most of them in the depth section in particular were guys that were acquired through the season, whereas this year they've already set themselves to have these guys in here in April, in May, in June, in July to learn what Minter wants. Again, like you said, the fact that they got anything out of this depth group is insane. The fact that they got a top 10 secondary out of it is absurd. But having I just feel so much better with Mickens, with Bridges there, watching them. Like, do I think they're first round talent guys that will start in the league right away? No, not at all. But I feel really, really good about that depth, and I feel good about what is going to inevitably be the flip from the kind of the official flip from the Telesco era guys all the way to officially now being these guys.
Sure.
I should say Brandon Staley era guys too, because he was involved with these selections as well.
Sure.
And you feel like aside from Dean Leonard, it's really going to be that next group. You see the churn about to happen with guys like Jasir Taylor in particular.
Yeah, and I think those guys could certainly be on the chopping block. Obviously, Ryan Ficken is going to have a strong say in the roster here. But you just are kind of seeing more of the identity here. And I'm going to bring this up. Jesse Minter said on Chargers Weekly that he wants to play more man coverage in 2025. And last year, they just didn't really have like the size at the outside corner spots to really do that, I think, outside of Cam Hart, who they drafted and used that way. And Dean Leonard is a little bit, bigger, taller, longer, but he's not really that big. But you look at the size of this cornerback room, it just is in a much better spot in that regard. So if Cam Hart can ditch his injury history, that's going to be a huge thing here. But if he can't, they have Benjamin St. Juste, Triquez Bridges, who are both very tall, very long, very big corners who could potentially be those pieces as well. So I think a lot of people are penciling in the Chargers. They're just going to run a ton of zone again. It's what they did last year. They didn't really have the size at corner to play a ton of man, and now they do. And I think we'll see Jesse Minter be able to play with his identity a little bit more. And that should be exciting to hear for Chargers fans, because the fact that he took a defense last year into borderline top 10 and it wasn't really what his identity is kind of crazy. So I can't wait to see what it looks like with a group that can properly execute his scheme the way that he wants to.
Yeah. And I do feel better about the pitfalls or the bad things that could occur with this group. Let's say, as Clay points out, like Dante Jackson, that just flat out might not work out. Calvin mentions, the concussions with Cam Hart. While I don't think the backups make an elite room by any means, I feel better about them just like, okay, like Dean Leonard's up next, Bridges is up next. And again, that's not a great room, but I trust the coaches will get it done.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember that Derwin James is essentially their nickel slot corner. He's going to be in the slot, and Alohi and Elijah are going to be playing safety. And so, Dante Jackson playing corner is really going to be more of a rotational thing. It's going to be dependent on how they want to match up that week. But I think they're going to enter the season with their main six, their main five, I should say, of nickel package, including Cam Hart and Tarheeb Still. Maybe that's a little projection with Cam Hart, and I love the way that he can play, but I just think them wanting to play more man coverage means that Cam Hart is going to get his chance to play a lot, and then Dante Jackson is your third corner instead of your second, and he's probably your sixth defensive back instead of your third or fourth or second. So I understand why some people are a little less enthused about Dante Jackson. But he's fine as your third guy. And so if Cam Hart can be healthy, that's obviously the big question mark. But Derwin James is going to be your essential slot corner to start out. And he played, basically like 70% of his snaps in the second half of the season in the slot. So corner is really, whoever is kind of healthy and whoever can rotate in to complement Derwin. That's really how they've approached it right now.
Yeah. Alrighty. Last one. And speaking of depth is the center depth, which I know isn't super exciting, but especially with the removal of Bucky Williams. So they had Bradley Bozeman, then there's backup center. Like I looked at the Chargers release depth chart on their own website. They had Brendan Hymas as the backup, and they had Bucky Williams as an additional backup at center. Both those players are now off the roster. They didn't even get it. Like there's no competing. Like they're not on the roster at all. The Chargers backup and the other backup last year didn't even sniff the roster this year. Having Andre James as your backup, regardless of what Brett Coleman said about him not being a great starter, Andre James as your backup is fantastic. That is a great. Now I know people will say like Bozeman's not starting. Sure, good luck everybody with that one. Andre James, at least right now on the depth chart, if the Chargers put out today, is the backup, and that feels nice. Technically, you also have Zion Johnson. And while I didn't love his film, his UDFA, Maryland center Josh Kaltenberger, if I'm saying that right, is at least an intriguing option for them that is enormous and has like a 9.7 RAS or whatever it is. So there's at least traits there. It makes it interesting. This center depth is far better than what it was last year, as evidenced by the fact that the two guys that were their backups last year aren't even on the team right now.
Yeah, Sam Mustipher replaced Brendan Hymas as the backup center like in week 2 also. So
yeah.
That's great.
Also not here, I think.
Also not on the team.
Yeah.
I think Carson Barnhart is probably in this conversation as well. Once he did come back from his hand injury, he was taking snaps at center and guard. So him and Josh Kaltenberger are probably in competition for like practice squad center, and like spoiler alert, I think it's probably going to be Barnhart again. But no, in all seriousness, like Andre James as your backup is a really good situation, and they have at least acknowledged and worked Zion in at center. So in a pinch, that's not the worst thing possible. So I think it is true, even if you're not super thrilled about Bradley Bozeman potentially starting, which I know most of the fan base is not, but they have an actual legitimate backup center now in Andre James, which is definitely better than what they did last year.
Yeah. This is not a great center room, but it's better center depth. And hey, let's say Bradley Bozeman is the backup. Great. That's still a better backup than it was last year.
Where he says 64's knees look awkward.
I guess it's he's just, planted, knee kind of comes in. It's all good.
Brennan says Nick Hardwick center 3. He's like their walkthrough center for what it's worth, which is always super cool when him and Justin Herbert get out there and snap to each other. So he's very active out there, but he weighs probably like 225 pounds right now. So I don't think he can actually play center right now.
I wonder what their like emergency center option is that is a non-offensive lineman. Like I don't know. Can call
the non-offensive lineman. Harbaugh could probably talk himself into Scott Matlock playing center, honestly.
Watch that work too.
He's big enough,
Yeah. He can read a defense, I think.
Yeah. But overall, I think this is a good kind of way to frame how the Chargers have done this. Clay wants to know, can Slater play center? I think he could
play center.
But he's arguably your best player on your team. So you're not moving him.
Yeah.
But I understand what Clay is asking. I think like in a pinch, you probably could.
Yeah. Make Joel do it. Whatever.
Imagine 6'9" Joel playing center.
Oh man.
But their pecking order would be Bozeman, James, Zion, and then probably Barnhart or somebody off the street.
Yeah.
If it gets past that point, then yeah, I guess we could talk about Rashawn Slater playing center.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Trey Harris. I'm sorry, not Trey Harris. Josh Harris. Yeah, that makes sense. Uber goober jock. Yeah, that actually makes the most sense.
In terms of snapping, sure.
The ball will get to Herbert.
The ball will get to Herbert.
And he can stand 15 yards back if he wants to. I can't pass protect. Yeah.
Imagine him blocking Chris Jones one-on-one.
It can't be worse than Sam Mustipher last year, dude. Like I'm willing to give everything a shot, man.
True.
Can you give up less than 10 pressures? You're hired.
Yeah, you're hired. You're good.
It was close.
But no, I think if like worst case happens, they would probably just sign somebody off the street.
Yeah. Yep.
Bring back Bucky Williams.
Yeah, true. I'm actually a little surprised Bucky Williams was let go so early. Not that he had a ton of swing in the room, but I don't know. You don't really have a future center, so hold on to these guys.
Yeah. The good news is it sounds like next year's center class is pretty good. So excited to see that.
Like last year's when they didn't take anyone.
Yes. All right, we'll get to our couple super chats here. Dark Samus says Bolts Broncos are the faves to win the West. Better rosters. Chiefs online looks really bad. They have a former 5th rounder playing LT, losing Tooney. I think their former 2nd round pick is going to be starting at left tackle here, but
Kingsley?
Yeah. Or I guess Jalen Moore, they paid him. He might. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's right now on the unofficial depth chart: Moore, Caliendo, Humphrey, Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor. I can't believe that this is a team with Suamataia, Norzad, Morris. And they're not even starting. I don't know. I know Norzad will eventually, though.
He might think that the favorites are not the Chiefs, but the betting markets are still very clearly swinging towards the Chiefs. So they have DraftKings, FanDuel, Caesars all have AFC West odds out. Kansas City Chiefs are minus 115. Chargers are second at plus 325. Broncos at plus 425. And then the Raiders are plus 2,000. So I get what you're saying in terms of like the Chiefs limitations, but we just did this last year and they made the Super Bowl. So
yeah, we do this all the time. I can't consider them I can't consider the Broncos or Chargers favorites. No. Could I convince you and give you 10 reasons why the Chargers or Broncos win it? Sure, but I can't say they're the favorites right now.
The AFC West is going to be very good if everybody stays relatively healthy. The Raiders are going to be much improved. The Broncos improved. I think the Chargers improved. You know, will the Chiefs win the division by like 4 games like they usually do? Maybe that's where we can have a conversation. Maybe that's, 1 game or 2 games instead. But I will pick a non-Chiefs team to win the AFC West when it happens. Again, like they've won the division like 9 years in a row or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it sucks, but I think this is a little hopium from Dark Samus.
Yeah, and they did add Josh Simmons, who I think is good.
They had a really good draft. They
did.
They had a really good draft.
Some good players too. Like if the Chargers added Jalen Royals, fans would be flipping out. Like that'd be like the receiver 2 on this team. They added him. Theoretically, Rice returns at some point. Yeah, I think they'll be okay. I hate them.
Yeah, I hate them as well.
And we get to play them week 1.
Yeah. I don't know, man. So the Chargers could have chosen to protect this game and they didn't. And so the NFL is going to put it in Brazil. I guess if you're on the positive side of this being week 1 in Brazil, neutral site, everybody theoretically healthy at that time, hopefully healthy at that time. did we all watch the field in Brazil last year?
Yeah.
I'm not too crazy about this game in general, but I would like to play the Chiefs on a better playing surface.
Yeah, no, I just, if you, whoever wins or loses, like, it's one game. I can't watch the Chargers get hurt or the Chiefs get hurt. Like, I don't want these guys to get hurt.
Yeah. So we'll see. The good news is the Chargers will get a home game in week 2, I guess. That's how the NFL handled it last season. But if you're a season ticket holder,
it sucks.
Yeah. I would not be thrilled about having the Chiefs game be in Brazil. And like the NFL could put a number of teams, right? Like they wouldn't put the Eagles in Brazil because they just won the Super Bowl. But like if you were a season ticket holder, the Eagles are probably one of your higher games on that list. And imagine if they were a Europe game or whatever, Steelers team kind of thing. So whoever they chose was not going to be a great situation for season ticket holders, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I'm surprised the Chargers are willingly choosing to not protect the Chiefs game because it's their most important home game. I would think that they would like to have that at SoFi. I don't know.
Yeah. With that said, as we've said every year at this point, I've never watched the Chargers beat the Chiefs at home. I've literally never watched that because they haven't. We have not watched that even on TV.
Nope. It's been
2013.
Long time.
Against Chase Daniel and the Chiefs when they sat every starter.
Yeah. So we'll see. Schedule release comes out on Wednesday. The international games will be officially announced tomorrow. So most of the public reporting is that it will be the Chiefs, but it's not official quite yet. Jared Robinson says, don't forget Mike Dubb played 18 games last year.
How many snaps? I will let you know as I do my quick search.
I think he didn't even get a bye last week, I don't think, because he got traded after the Steelers had their bye already. So I don't think he got a bye week last year.
Yeah, he ended up playing 481 snaps. That's not a ton. He played over 700 in every game, or every year with the Chargers, but 2023 and his rookie year. But yeah, I think that's honestly 481 is more than I thought he played. Granted, he didn't have a ton of stats with it.
Yeah, and he was not on the same page with either of his quarterbacks, and quarterbacks were not great. So he was like their wide receiver 3 for both of those teams, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Dark Same is back with another one. He says, ready for Zion on Becton to shut down Chris Jones.
I'm waiting for $1 million salary as a teacher.
Listen, I would love to see it. Chris Jones is really freaking good. And Zion's rookie season had some good moments against Chris Jones, but it's not been pretty since.
Yes. I'm not taking that bet. I'm more willing to bet on the Chargers beating the Chiefs than I am them specifically shutting down Chris Jones. I just don't see that happening schematically or through the run game, perhaps, but not shutting him down.
Yeah, they left Chris Jones one-on-one against Sam Mustipher quite often in week 4. So
did it work, Steven?
I'm just like, I don't know if they know how to shut down Chris Jones. Like they did not double team him in either game. So
yeah, it was a bold strategy. Like, what if we just like Jedi mind trick him and he freaks out because he's got one-on-one with Sam Mustipher?
Yeah, exactly. Our last one here from Dre. He says Chargers 2028 Super Bowl champs.
I don't even. What is 2028? They're starting to do like movie projections. I follow a lot of like movie news, and they're like, yeah, in 2031. I'm like, what is 2031? Like, please stop doing that to me. I don't even know what that is. 2028 Super Bowl champs. Do we know where that's hosted yet?
Are you looking it up?
Yes.
This year is Santa Clara, as our guy at Thier also always
2028 Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia.
Where's 2027?
I don't know. Hold on.
Oh, I thought you would like the whole list.
Oh no. Oh, that's at SoFi.
2027 is?
Yes. So the one that is the 2026-2027 season.
Yeah.
That'd be okay. Fun. See you guys there. That sounds fun.
I do think like next year is like
make
the push.
And they almost feel like they admit that based on their moves too.
Yeah. And I don't know, like, I could just be saying this, right? But like, they're gonna have a lot of cap space for 2026. Like they are currently projected to have $131 million. And granted, they like the Rashawn Slater contract extension, etc. Like Derwin James might get extended this year. Like that number is going to change, but they're not using all their cap space this year. This current year, they still have about $20 million of cap space after you sign the draft picks. So you assume maybe $10 million of like in-season moves and stuff like that. So you carry $10 million in more into next season. So next season, they're going to have a ton of cap space to make that move. They're not going to have a ton of draft picks because they're not going to get very many compensatory picks. But next year feels like the big push. Let's go make a true Super Bowl run. And another draft with like the past 2 years and more development from certain guys. And next year feels like it could be, the season to make a push.
Yeah. They only have 2 players making over $10 million next year. Granted that, like you said, that's going to change with Rashawn Slater, which people are freaking out about. Like, no, that Rashawn Slater is going to get a new deal. It's crazy that Ladd McConkey's cap hit next year is $2.7 million.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Dude, in 2026, Will Dissly is their 5th highest paid player.
And deservedly so.
Deservedly so.
Becton, Dissly, Bradley Bozeman 6th for what it's worth.
Yep.
Oh wait, how's that work?
They do not have a lot of expensive players.
No,
but I don't think this counts for Sean Slater because he technically is not under contract yet for 2026.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm not concerned. Rashawn, that contract extension is going to get done. The Chargers are a July extension team. It's just kind of how they handle things. And you can't be the Chargers and how they want to operate and not extend Rashawn Slater. So it'll happen. No. Just be patient, everybody there. Last one here from TD. He says, good show, guys. Thank you for the big super chat there. We always appreciate any super chats in general, but very kind there.
Funny though, Ronnie Stanley and I think, was it Humphrey? They were both extended in October.
Yeah.
So I don't. The Chargers have that, but the Ravens are different.
Yeah. Well, the Chargers are like very much, we're going to extend you before free agency or in the summer.
Yeah. No, they'll take care of business with Slater. He's
too good.
We got a lot of pushback for saying he was the best player on the Chargers last year. Not the MVP of the team, although maybe you might feel that way, but he was pretty good.
Yeah. We just got another one from Dre. Love how the Chargers are hesitant to blow their cap space just for the sake of it. This roster compared to 2023 is night and day.
Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of would have liked them to just spend money for the sake of it too, but they spent responsibly and they built the floor of their team.
Yeah. And I think everybody should feel pretty comfortable that the floor of this team is always going to be pretty high with this regime. They make too many smart decisions. They develop players, everything like that. So the floor is much higher than it has been in quite a while.
Yes. Thank you, TD. We are definitely not the way of the palm. Despite being the handstand guy and the handstand podcast, we don't do too much of the pom-pom, rah-rah, shishkamba, whatever, pom-pom waving.
Yeah. When they earn it, we give it to them that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I was stoked for Trey Harris.
We were very pom-pom during last year's draft.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it worked out.
Yeah.
We believed in it. We will not sit here and gas up Ben Mason or whatever 4th string UDFA that pops up.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Tyler. Any other final thoughts before we head out tonight?
I want to say I'm excited for the schedule reveal, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited to be entertained by whatever nasty thing they call the Raiders via whatever graphic they use.
Yeah. Will they do Sims 2.0?
I don't.
They did animate 2 years, right?
Yeah, anime again, Sims. I don't know if you can set up that pattern. I wish we got the trilogy with the anime there, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Because now Jim's been on the team like through the off season because he joined in January of last year. I'm guessing they kind of had some ideas. So I don't know. I don't know. I would love it if it's just Ben Herbert staring into the camera, reading like the card. He just holds up the card like week 1, week 2, and that's all it is. Like that'd be great.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're gonna do something in terms of like a creation standpoint. It's just kind of their brand at this point. Maybe they could do 2 with like the players revealing something or things like that. But
yeah,
Kareem asking what's been trending. I don't think it necessarily has to be trendy because Sims is like old. Like Sims is not popular right now. So maybe they could do like a Minecraft theme or something. But
yeah,
whatever it is, I know that they have been working very diligently to get it done.
Yeah. Excited to see them win the day on Wednesday.
Yeah. So we will be live on Wednesday afterwards. We'll go over everything from the schedule as well as we'll do a premature record prediction. So I think this could be a really nice reset into how we feel about the team overall. We've talked a lot about some of our concerns over the last couple of weeks. Today we did some improvements, so we'll put that onto a record prediction on Wednesday. Hopefully you guys will tune in for it. If nothing else, we'll have a good time talking about what the Chargers have done from a social media standpoint. So we appreciate you all so much for tuning in. As always, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff does genuinely help support our show. And we appreciate you guys so much. We'll see you on Wednesday. As always, bolt up.